What is going on, guys and girls? How you doing today? It's Roleplayer here once again, and the Animal Crossing League is almost there, and it's about time to start thinking about getting what? The good fertilizer, of course! Because, you know, what kind of seeds you can grow without it? Wait a minute, yeah, you just need a good starter build, guys. And I'm here to help because I have quite a bit of builds in my collection. All of these builds have been personally play tested by me, created by me, and I can vouch with my dick that they work. You know, there's a little bit difference between the, let's say, starter builds and my starter builds. Because the majority of starter builds out there, they are only meant to get you to the maps, and then you respec and actually start playing some build, which can actually make you to the end game. I think it's kind of bullshit. I always thought it's bullshit. I mean, what's the reason to play a build then you need to kind of respec later into some other build? It's a waste of currency, it's a fucking waste of time. How about you play the starter build, which actually brings you to the end game right from the very beginning. And these are how mine builds actually are made. You start at level 1, you go all the way to the maps and all the way into the end game as well. This is what my league starter builds are. Let's get going. Let's check what I have to show you guys. Before we go further into the video, I would like to stop for a second and thank my Patreon supporters and Twitch subscribers. You guys are making a huge impact on my life and allow me to get going and continue creating content for all of you. Thank you so much. If you want to make it into the list and immortalize yourself on the internet, join Patreon to get sneak peeks and behind-the-scenes footage of my work. I'm always looking for feedback on my content, guys, in order to improve, so making sure you always leave comment, like or dislike. Your reaction is very important. And remember,
you, yes you, are making a difference.
the first build on the list is the Explosive Trap and the Flamethrower Trap Saboteur. Have you ever heard about Explosive Trap? I kinda don't think so, and so is most people out there. And this is pretty cool because it makes the build so much cheaper than the rest of the builds out there. These guys are the cheapest, strongest, easily the strongest, cheapest build I've ever played, and I've played over 40 builds in this game, guys. This practically is like crazy cheap, strong, and can bring you to the very fucking end game with practically no investment. I mean, it's Explosive Trap, no one cares. Helmet chance, cheap. Weapons, cheap. You don't need anything. Like, practically no one cares about the gear for this. So you can buy anything like under an EXILE and get going. I mean, the 6-link Tinker Skin chest, which is the endgame chest for this build, was like 35 chaos in the Delirium League. So it was the cheapest possible build to ever get to the endgame with this, and I can totally recommend it. The single target, the AoE is just all fantastic. You will not be disappointed. I also incorporated the max dodge in this build, so it makes it pretty damn tanky. If you really want to invest, this is a thing to do. I think that dodge is probably the hardest to scale mechanic, but this is very rewarding because you don't need dexterity, you don't need block, you don't have armor. As a saboteur, you are pretty much squishy fuck, so you mostly rely on regeneration and some kind of either evasion or dodge. I decided to stick dodge in this build, and it was a blast. It was an interesting experience, and this is my only like mega dodge build out there, guys. Can totally recommend. Very cheap, very strong, highly recommended. Another build on the list is the Spectre Summoner build with skeletons on top, and this is one of my all-time easiest favorite summoner builds for the Necromancer Ascendancy. You know, back in the day, I really wanted to revamp the Spectre build as a whole, especially after the buff when Spectre became kind of permanent. And yeah, now it's way easier to play Spectres than before. And the deal behind this build is that it's extremely easy, straightforward, and newbie friendly. It doesn't require any tremendous amount of experience. And it's one of the builds that is kind of, you know, noob proof. You can't really fail with this build, no matter how bad you are, no matter how few experience you get within the game, because the minions just carry you for anything. And even after the buffs and the nerfs to the minions, this is still one of the most powerful builds existing in the game. The build relies on Spectres, which do like 2 to 3 million damage, and there's also the skeletons in the helm on the 5-link, which also deliver about million DPS on top, which is what I invented and what I upgraded in this build, because many people just gave up on skeletons and put them like on a 4-link or just using the animated guard instead. But I did like a fully pledged Spectre build with a very strong additional single target on top just in case, and the build was an absolute success. What the build is about is just a very classic Spectre cookie cutter summoner build, which literally is very easy to understand, newborn friendly, and can carry you through the entire game. I killed all content with this build. Uber Atsiri, Uber Elder, no problems. Totally recommended. One important thing to mention about the Spectre as a whole is that really like the field of experiment. There are many Spectres in the game which you can summon, and if you don't know, Spectres are literally the monsters that you kill and then summon as a Spectres to manipulate and deal damage. And this is the Solar Guard build, but it doesn't mean that you need to stick with this. For example, minions, you can experiment and try some different Spectres, and this is part of the fun in playing Spectres as a whole. You can go slave drivers, you can do undying incinerators, you can do whatever, practically, Val Reason Advocates. There are many cool Spectres, and I also experimented myself with some, and I have separate videos on different types of Spectres. So it's a very cool experimenting build about minion summoning and necromancy. So definitely, guys, check this out. Next on the list is the big dick fake Earthquake Jag, guys. This is my all-time favorite melee build in the game, and I brought it 3 times to the ultimate glory. And just about several months ago, I released the 3rd version of this video build guide, so this like fully fresh, and at the same time it's pretty easy, straightforward. It doesn't use any league things like the cluster jewels or any league weapons or league mechanics. It's absolutely made from scraps and common things, and it delivers a shit ton of damage. This was about 2-minute Uber Elder kill for me several leagues ago, and I'm really happy how the build performs, how it works, and it only gets better in the upcoming league because of the two-handed rework and the buffs to the melee gems out there. So I'm pretty sure like this build will be insanely popular in the upcoming league. And if you Google Earthquake Jag, my build comes as first in the Google search. So there's practically no other people out there who really got so deep into the Earthquake Jag and created this solid build guide. So yeah, take a look at this, guys. This is highly recommended. Very strong, heavy hitter build. Very tanky. I specifically made it like a balance between the damage and the tankiness. So it's specifically made for very tough situations with the emphasis on the toughness and damage balance. So check it out. Highly recommended. If not now, then I don't know when else you will be playing Earthquake Jag, because this is the two-handed kind of melee buff league, and it's about time that everyone will start playing this now or never. Let's get going. The 4th on the list is once again my Toxic Rain and Herald of Agony Pathfinder build. And so far, surprisingly, this is my most popular build with over like 100 and I believe 70 pages of feedback on the forums, which is absolutely insane, and is still incredibly popular among the community, and for a good reason. It's a very in-depth, complex, at the same time flexible and easy build to play, which never fails. The way that Toxic Rain is kind of a top-down rain of arrows with deals chaos damage over time, pretty much like Acoustic Arrow, but it's better than Acoustic Arrow in many aspects. A couple of things which are very different. First is that it's a top-down skill, and it means there are no obstacles needed to block your projectiles practically. With Acoustic Arrow, there's always a problem because it shoots like ahead, and if there's any rocks or anything, cliffs, stairs or whatever, you just get fucked and your arrows just get blocked. and you just don't hit the enemies. For Toxic Rain, it's not a big issue because it's always a top-down skill. It always hits no matter the case. Another important thing which is different from the Acoustic Arrow is that Acoustic Arrow needs piercing. Without the pierce, Acoustic Arrow just sucks ass completely. And Toxic Rain doesn't give a shit because, you know, it's once again is a top-down skill. It doesn't need to pierce anything. It just falls from the top. And the third and probably the most important thing that differentiates the two skills, which have definitely a lot of things in common, is that Acoustic Arrow doesn't stack. So if your arrow hits like the enemy twice, it just refreshes the duration of your poison, but it doesn't stack. But Toxic Arrow does stack. It does lower damage on paper, but the amount of poison and physical damage and poison and chaos damage over time you can stack on the enemies is absolutely ridiculous. And that's why it works miracles. Even if you're not a very successful, fast, good player, it doesn't matter. Poison will do the job. And this is why the build is so incredibly popular, so strong, no matter the case, and can do all content. Totally recommend it. Another important thing to mention about the build is that it's probably one of the most flexible builds and doesn't really require any specific gear to make it work. You can run any physical ball like Lioness Glare or Dark Scorn or pretty much anything, even the Doomfledge Prism. But one of the best early options is Quill Rain, and guys, good news, Quill Rain got a little bit unnerved. It got 10% of the damage back from 40% less to 30% less, so it's a little better, and it definitely brings build back a little bit, back by back, little by little. Next build on the list is the SRS Necromancer build, and several leagues ago I took the well-known SRS and brought it to the absolutely different astronomical cosmic space exploration level, and it was a super powerful build. I farmed Uber Elders like nothing with this build, and after a couple of patches it was nerfed a little bit because it lost some mods on the staff that we could craft, but it's still there. It's still very powerful, and these stuffs can be still crafted in different ways, and there is still a very cheap endgame weapon called the Realm Ender Staff, which you can buy for like fucking 5 to 10 chaos and do all content in the game with this. The build is not the fastest, not the strongest, not the tankiest. It's a little bit squishy, a little bit slow, but you know, it's just one of those builds that can really push forward no matter what. No matter how new you are, no matter how bad you are, the build doesn't care. The homing fucking raging spirits, flying balls of shit, they just don't care. They just fucking fly and destroy the fuck out of everyone. They just don't give a shit. They just kill things. They're just there to seek and destroy. That's what SRS guys are, and I can totally recommend this build for absolutely anyone out there. The build hasn't been nerfed in any really like kind of substantial form or way. It is still very powerful, it is still very strong, and it can do all content in the game, definitely. And it's absolutely fantastic for the Delirium because there will be a lot of monsters. You don't want to aim like in all directions. You just shoot the SRS, they go chase and they kill stuff. Next build on the list is the Reckoning Cyclone Gladiator with Max Block, and this is one of my really favorite builds. It's also became very popular in the recent patches, surprisingly, after the nerf. But yeah, it's still incredibly strong, and this was recorded after the nerf just to showcase there is still a shit ton of damage. Previously you just completely wrecked all bosses in under a second, but after they toned down the damage by about like 60% on the counter attack, it is still pretty insane, just not one-shotting things. It's a pretty okay, semi-affordable build, and you can push it as a league starter by just playing as pretty typical physical Impale Cyclone, and then transition into the Reckoning as you get the Abyssus, as you get the Helm Enchant, as you get the good chest, as you get the all the juice for that. This is where Reckoning start killing things even better than the Cyclone, where Cyclone cannot reach Reckoning, just shreds, and bosses just kill themselves when they touch you with the counterattacks. That's what Reckoning is. So if you've never played something cool, aside from being just a Cyclone, which is pretty boring, so this adds a juice cherry on top, and definitely try it out, guys. This is very strong, very powerful build, very tanky, one of the 3 tankiest builds I have ever played for the last 7 years in PoE, and it still craps on everything around, and it's still one of my favorite builds in the game. Check this one out. Another build that I can totally recommend is the Siege Ballista deck stacking Hierophant using the Iron Commander. This was my league starter in the Metamorph and is absolutely sick. I cleared all content, all maps, all bosses included Cyrus. I started with nothing from scratch, and I leveled up to 95 and destroyed everything on my way. You know, it's also one of the coolest builds I've honestly ever played, because it was the squishiest builds I've ever played. I rarely play builds when I would have like 4.5 thousand life, and I couldn't believe how tanky this build was, because it was stacking evasion, because I was stacking dexterity, and so I was stacking evasion. It was over 25,000 evasion. So practically the shit just never hit me, and I was running like crazy, killing things left and right, you know, not giving a shit about whatever is ahead of me. I did occasionally die between 94 and 95, but aside from that, it was surprisingly tanky build for such an enormously small, tiny life pool that you see here, which is pretty insane. So the build strength is definitely how easy it is to take off the ground, and it's probably the cheapest league starter builds I've ever played in my life, because the Iron Commander was 15 chaos for the 6-link in the Metamorph. Just imagine that. 15 chaos for the 6-link. It was as a price of the Divine Orb, and it was a fairly popular build in the league. Definitely a lot of people realized how strong it is. The single target damage is up to 10 to 12 million sheep per DPS, which is absolutely ridiculous. And deck stacking is still there in the Delirium, so definitely, guys, check it out if you want to play something cool, something cheap, something unorthodox, something new to try it out, as these ballistas out there in the Hierophant Ascendancy. Definitely try it out, highly recommend it. Another build on the list is the Ancestral Warchief Chieftain build, and this is one of the strongest single target boss killing builds I've ever played in the PoE. I was surprised how much damage I squeezed out of that, because it kind of was a resident sleeper. It was not a popular build. I took it, I juiced it up with the, you know, the modern stuff like the Conqueror's Exalted Orbs, the Warlords, the Hunters, and all this stuff. I squeezed everything I could from this build, and it killed Conquerors in 1 fucking second, guys. And assuming that the damage of the bosses was really improved, like the Shaper has 100 million HP right now with the Awakening level 8, and the build just seemed like it did damage as the buffs haven't really happened, like it was pre-buff. There was so much damage in this build, guys. The clear speed is a bit of lackluster. It's not the fastest build, it's not the craziest AoE, it's pretty slow, it's pretty, you know, kind of even boring at times, but, you know, it's kind of the build that never fails. If you're a new player, if you haven't really played much PoE, if you want to go really far into the end game, and the most importantly, kill all bosses in the game, this is the build for you guys, because, you know, killing trash is not really an issue, but bosses is what fucks you hard in this game. And if you have struggling with the bosses, you will not get far, you will die, you will get killed, you will not progress into the end game. This build solves the issue. It's pretty cheap. It can use Tukohama's Fortress, which is a pretty cheap shield, and can absolutely obliterate all content in the game and all boss in the game for a pretty moderately and low budget possible. So definitely check it out. Next build that I want to show you guys is probably my choice. If I were to play the league right now and league start with something, I would probably play this build, and this is the Max Block Herald of Agony Gladiator. This is an incredibly tanky build with a lot of damage. When I started building this as the kind of the similar version to the Money Guardian Herald of Agony build, I just wanted to check, like, what's the difference? Can really Gladiator be as tanky as the huge, like, 30 Okay, yes, Money Guardian at the same time while being cheaper. Well, it appears that the damage is even higher, but the investment is like 10 times less. So the Money Guardian is like huge investment for huge tankiness, but Herald of Agony is like no investment, huge tankiness and huge damage, which was fucking shock for me personally. I just didn't understand like why is it so crazy good for the very little price. So this build is probably one of the 3 really tanky builds left in the game, like outside of going, you know, in mirror gear or anything. It practically runs like Victorious Charity, Cold Iron Point, and some basic gear like the Anvil. The reason why this build is so good is because of the that Herald of Agony goes a lot of levels. It's like 31 level, I think, on the Herald of Agony that we get here. A lot of damage stack on this, as well as a lot of added physical damage on the Herald itself, as well as the amount of healing and recovery that you get on top of the 80% plus block on this build just makes it literally impenetrable to any kind of damage, even with not so crazy regeneration and not so crazy recovery. It's still pretty insane for what it is, and I can highly recommend this build if you really want to play something really, really tanky and at the same time have no problems clearing any things like any maps, any content, because this really scales well into the end. You can highly recommend this. Highly recommend it, guys. The last build on the list is probably my all-time favorite spell build, and this is the Essence Drain Occultist, which can also be played as a Trickster. I have the Pathfinder building for the Trickster version too. Overall, it's the most, I would say, smoothest spells in the game, which literally never fails. And if you want to play a League starter, and if you never played spells, if you never played damage over time, low life character, this is definitely a build for you, because it's just so strong, so smooth, so decently fast. It's also incredibly tanky. Even after the energy shield nerfs, you can still gather about 10,000 energy shield with some mediocre investment, I would say. So, you know, it's one of those builds that practically never fails, and it's like a guaranteed to drag you very far into the end game, with which also can do all content like Uber Series, Uber Elder, simply because the damage is there, the tankiness is there, the speed is there, and you know, it's one of the possibly smoothest spell builds in the entire game. I also been carrying Uber Elders with this build in the Synthesis League. This is where I created and updated the build guide. So guys, totally recommend it. If you never played the damage over time spellcaster, definitely build for you to consider. A couple of important things to mention about the difference between the Trickster and the Occultist. Back in the day when I created the build, I strictly made it as an Occultist because it was way far superior in terms of tankiness. Trickster was always very fast character, very smooth, he could recover really quickly and was insanely speedy and fast caster, but he lacked tankiness, and Occultist was far ahead with over like 2,000.5 more energy shield. But now, after the nerfs to the Occultist and buffs to the Trickster and nerfs to the Trickster, I would say they are pretty close. The only difference between those two is the Occultist cannot be stunned while he has energy shield, and at the same time he has the kind of built-in Wither Totem in him, and he casts Wither stacks just by walking near the bosses, so you don't need a Wither Totem. At the same time, Trickster cannot be stunned only when he have Ghost Shrouds on him, and this is a bit tricky because if you get hit and lose your Ghost Shrouds, then you can be perma-stunned and die. It happened quite a bit times of me on my next Arctic Breath Trickster build, so I learned that overall Occultist is kind of a more reliable, tankier character even after all the nerfs, so I can still recommend going Occultist over Trickster in most cases. Next build will probably be a little surprise for you because it's a Stormbrand Hierophant. You may be asking, what? But Archmage has been nerfed and Brand Recall has been destroyed. What the fuck are you talking about? Guys, that might sound like a little bit of shock for you, but I killed Cyrus 8 without the fucking Archmage and the Brand Recall before they started to be the big dick metacocks. So yeah, I did this before the Archmage and before the fucking brand recall was widely used. So yeah, it works without it just fine, just not as insane, because Archmage gives like 1000% increased damage. It just was necessary to be destroyed. It was a single support that give you like 10 times more damage with the Archmage support, just completely broken. So it was necessary to be fucked in the ass. But even without it, Stormbreach Hierophant is a fantastic league starter. I can totally recommend it. Overall, kind of the brands themselves, if you never play them, there's like a mix between the totems and the spells, even though totems is a spells too, but this is kind of a thing that you plant and attaches to the enemy, starts zapping it till he's dead, and it actually, if you go energy shield, it can leech energy shield back to you. So it's like, let's say, something like between the traps, totems, and spells, but if you go ES, you can actually leech energy shield back, and this is fantastic for recovery. You know, back in the day, the spells were pretty much guarded, and there's not possible to leech life with spells anymore unless you specifically go elemental leech. But with the spells and energy shield, you can leech energy shield with spells. So this is how it works, and I can totally recommend you guys, if you've never played Stormbrand, Hierophant, or whatever, definitely try it out. The build still works, it still functions, and still kills. Just not as absolutely meta-cuck overpowered as in the Delirium. Definitely check it out. Well, this is it, guys. You have not 10 but actually 11 League Starter build ideas for you to play in the Harvest League. And like I said, all these builds had been played by me, and I went to the Uber Elders and Cyruses and killed all of them with this build, so they have been tested from level 1 to the end. So check it out, guys, and if you find something useful in my videos, definitely use them. All of these builds have links in the description below. I have the full document with the links to all of these builds, so they're all in the forums with all the leveling gears and trees and all that shit. I'll be keeping an eye on the pathway building and all the changes that is coming to the trees, so they can fix whatever errors will there be, the trees, the leveling trees, the gear, and whatever. Even though I will probably not be playing the league myself, I'll still be closely keeping an eye on whatever is happening in the Path of Exile world, so definitely not disappearing, guys. Keeping an eye on all of you and replying to all your amount of feedback, and any comments you have, you always can ask on Discord, on my Twitch, or anything and anywhere, guys. Definitely check it out. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.